worked out. Pickens is 6th in the league in receiving yards per game. CD Lamb, despite the injuries, is right behind him at 7. So if you think Pickens is going to be overlooked with Lamb back, last week Pickens still had 80 receiving yards. Lamb had over 100. That offense was absolutely cruising last week, albeit against a struggling Commanders defense. Hawk, this topic came up with us on Sunday Countdown. I'll ask it to you. George Pickens and CD Lamb. Is that the best 1-2 punch at wide receiver in the entire NFL?
They're the best duo in the NFL, and somebody close to me said it's not even close. When you think about the other duos in the league, you go Devontae and Puka, who play the position really well, seasoned wide receivers. The difference for CD and George is they can score, take it the distance on any play from all 99 yards. That is a deep threat. That is run after catch. That is intermediate. They are young. They have juice. They are fast. They make contested catches. It makes it easy on Dak. This is what you dreamed about when you heard that the Cowboys were trading for George Pickens, and it's coming to fruition in a really, really big way for them.
Yeah, Jamar Chase and T. Higgins is another pair, another duo that would be considered.
Yeah, they're
Why
great.
are you laughing?
This isn't close right now.
He was the person I was close to.
This is by far the best duo. It's the best three-headed monster in the NFL if you put Ferguson in there.
You're saying it's not even close.
Not even close right now. Dude, when was the last time you watched George Pickens get covered one-on-one on the outside?
No, I feel
it's
you,
a joke
but the
right
fact
now.
that you're like, this is not even close. It's like you got Stafford, Devontae Adams, and Puka Nacua out there in L.A. Like, they're not even close.
Not right now. And I love what the Rams are doing. One, Devontae and Matthew just got on the same page last week. They had been missing consistently, and a lot of it was just red zone stuff last week, like goal line, okay? What's happening in Cincinnati, the context of the quarterback has to be a part of this conversation. It can't just be one-on-one. They're historical right now. There's no three-headed monster right now, like what Dallas has right now. And the receivers, I'll go back to this. When was the last time George got covered one-on-one on the outside? And then CD does whatever he wants at times. Right now, this is by far the best duo.
How about A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith, who won a Super Bowl last year? Our friend A.J. Brown again. I know that they're not putting up the numbers, but that's a pretty good duo there in Philadelphia as well. I don't know if you could say that these guys are head and shoulders better than anybody.
So let's circle back.
I agree that they're the best. All I'm saying is you're like, it's not.
Let's circle back. It doesn't matter.
I think they're the best.
Whether they're the best or not, notwithstanding. The offense is obviously ridiculously dynamic. Dak Prescott is having an MVP caliber. He's having the best season of his outstanding career. And so as they get set to go to Denver, I had a split over here on who they think is going to win. And Shefty, speaking of splits, you've got numbers.
Here's the one thing to keep in mind about the Dallas Cowboys, who have been dominant at home. And when you play them at Jerry's World, you are in for it all day. But when they go on the road, they're just not the same team as they're at home. Look at some of the numbers and the difference when they play at home compared to when they play on the road. At home, they're averaging over 41 points per game this season. Away, over 24. You see the total yards. There's almost a 100-yard difference per game. So you're talking about 16 points, 100 yards per game, and now you're going into Denver to play a tough defense. Again, Dallas is a great watch. They might have the best wide receiver 10 in the league, and that's not close.
Not close.
Yeah.
But on the road, they're not the same team.
So is this offense, the comparison's been made here. We can put the picks up on the screen this early if you want to. I think it's worth having as part of the context of the conversation. And Dan, I see you like the Broncos. The comparison I'm making is to what Joe Burrow and the Bengals had last year. The offense was so good.
Yeah.
The defense was so bad that even he couldn't drag them into the playoffs. If the Eagles start to show some signs of vulnerability, and I think Sunday will be a big step towards that, if they take care of business against the Giants, I'll feel better about them. Is the offense in Dallas good enough to get this team into contention in the division? They can't do it.
No, this offense.
The defense is that bad?
Well, yes, but the defense was different this past week as well. Like, the Cowboys are kind of like the Eagles in that regard. The defense did things differently this past week than they did this for the most of this season. Like, way more aggressive, way more man coverage, way more blitzing. And that was without Trayvon. Yeah, so like if that defense plays a little bit stylistically or schematically different, we have to see what that looks like over the course of the season. Overshown coming back, Trayvon's going to come back. So if they do things differently, then I'm a little bit more inclined to say that the defense isn't as bad as it was to start the year.
This week is going to be the test that really tells us, Greeny, because those wide receivers that people aren't even close to, they're going against Riley Moss and Patrick Surtain.
Yeah.
So if they have those kind of weeks against them, then it's solidified.
Yeah.
And then also when you have the context of where the Commanders are, their defense, run defense, pass
Their defense is just as bad as the Cowboys.
They're bad. And then on the offensive side, they were out of all their weapons. So, yes, it's a good week for the Cowboys to look great on both sides of the ball. The Broncos will be the real test.
So that feels to me like really the question. We watch what the Giants just did in Denver this week. I mean, the Giants dominated that game for 48 minutes or whatever it was, and then it turned into one of the most, the craziest games that you've seen in the NFL in a very long time. It's sort of an interesting litmus test for the Broncos as well. If they're going to be legit, if they're going to make a run at a Kansas City team that suddenly looks like they may be the best in the entire NFL, then you win this game, right? Carolina beat the Cowboys at home. The Broncos, if they're going to be legit, as you say, Will, they win this game.
Absolutely, and I think this is a get-back spot for that defense because the New York Giants had a lot of success. I love watching this defense on film. The way they take away your best players, the way they pass things off in zone, the way they communicate. You mentioned Moss and Surtain. Like, this defense is for real, like what, most pressures, most sacks in the league. This is a get-back spot for the Broncos, and I love that they are playing against the Cowboys offense because they are good.
Here's the thing about the Cowboys. One, the most important person in that game is Ferguson. Two,
if they East and go to Dallas. Last week, for the first time since week 3, Dak Prescott had both CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens on the field. This season, Dak has a QBR of 82 when those two players are on the field, throwing 5 touchdowns and just 1 interception. Prescott looking to tie an NFL record with his 5th straight game of 3 touchdown passes and no picks. J-Mac, how do you expect Denver to try to keep Lamb and Pickens in check, knowing just how good that Denver defense is?
This is probably the game I'm most excited to watch, just because as a former DB, we get the defending defensive player of the year and Patrick Surtain, Riley Moss on the outside, and probably the best wide receiver duo we've seen this season with George Pickens and CeeDee Lamb. The Broncos play the most man-to-man, second most in the NFL, and they bring pressure when they do so. I don't expect the Broncos to change. You're going to get simulated pressures. You're going to get press on the outside. You're going to get man-to-man, and I can't wait to see that matchup, to see whether Surtain follows CeeDee Lamb or George Pickens.
I'm just going to ask you that.
Does he go in the slot with those guys? I would imagine he may get matched up a little bit more on George Pickens because Surtain, because he lines up on the outside more. The difference is when guys go on the inside, I think Surtain will follow him in man-to-man, but when it's zone, he doesn't go inside as much because that's more for Mac Millen, who plays in there, and a little bit of Jahdae Barron. So that's going to be, to me, the matchup. Does he follow just one guy? Does he go into the boundary and cover who aligns there? How they go about displaying those guys, to me, is going to be a big thing. Riley Moss has played well for them on the other side of Surtain as well.
And hearing you say that was surprising, but now I think about it, when they played Cincy last year, Denver defensively, they had Surtain follow Jamar, and then Riley matched up against T and actually held his weight for a decent amount of that game. I'll be interested to see. I agree with that. I also think this is a Ferguson game for me. I feel like every time an offense is playing against Denver, it's the linebackers. They're playing all that man coverage. This linebacker group just struggles. It's a very good defense. But when you give them crossers, picks, rubs, stick routes, just outbreaker routes against man coverage, there's going to be some things that pop open. And I want to see if Dallas, who's notorious this season for figuring out ways to get those guys crossing each other, I think it could be a situation where Surtain gets lost sometimes because he might get picked off by those linebackers.
And I love that you had a lot of Theo Johnson and Daniel Bellinger from the Giants because they lit the Broncos up this past week. And that was even, they missed a touchdown.
Cowboys Nation, let's talk about what we just witnessed, because Sunday afternoon wasn't just another win. It was a statement. It was a pulse check. It was a reminder that the Dallas Cowboys are not done, not broken, and not backing down. The 44-22 dismantling of the Washington Commanders wasn't about luck or flash. It was about balance, execution, and a team rediscovering its identity under head coach Brian Schottenheimer. For the first time this season, both sides of the ball spoke the same language: offense and defense, speed and precision. And when that happens in Dallas, it starts to feel like the stars are beginning to align again in Big D. Let's start with the obvious. This offense is lethal. Dak Prescott is playing quarterback like a conductor leading a symphony. Every drive has rhythm. Every decision has purpose. CeeDee Lamb's return didn't just boost production, it reignited confidence. When Lamb stretches the field, safeties panic. When Pickens runs those deep posts, corners freeze. When Jake Ferguson releases off play action, linebackers hesitate. That's what balance looks like, and it's the first time all year the Cowboys' offense has looked like the machine we knew it could be. But here's the story beneath the surface. For the first time this season, the Dallas defense showed up with attitude. They held Washington to 67 yards on the ground. 67. That's not just good, that's dominance in the trenches. They forced hurried throws, swarmed tackles, and suffocated lanes. The Commanders' quarterbacks combined for barely over 200 yards passing. This wasn't the same defense we saw getting picked apart weeks ago. This was a defense playing with pride, with structure, and with purpose. And it all traces back to Schottenheimer's blueprint. He didn't panic after rough weeks. He adjusted. He simplified assignments. He demanded discipline. And now it's paying off. This was the lowest total yardage allowed by Dallas since the season opener against Philadelphia. Think about that. It took a while, but the adjustments are finally taking root. This defense, much like the offense, is evolving in real time. We're watching it grow up on the field. Now, across the NFL media landscape, there's one phrase that's starting to pop up again: Super Bowl contender. It's being whispered by analysts who mocked this team just a month ago, and for good reason. Taylor Lewan said it best this week: "I might be drinking the Kool-Aid right now, but after watching that Cowboys-Commanders game, I'm starting to believe the Cowboys are just one or two key defensive pieces away from being true contenders." He's right, because the numbers back it up, and the eye test seals it. Dallas is 3-3-1, but the record doesn't tell the full story. They're scoring like an elite team, they're moving the ball like an elite team, and now the defense is finally starting to look like it's catching up. So what are those missing pieces? That's where the front office comes in. Jerry Jones said last week that this team is open for business ahead of the trade deadline. He made it clear, if there's a move that makes Dallas better, he's ready to make it. And now, with the Cowboys within striking distance of turning into a full-fledged contender, that talk means something. The whispers are getting louder. Max Crosby, the Raiders' defensive anchor, a relentless, game-changing pass rusher who plays every down like his career depends on it. 4 Pro Bowls, double-digit sacks in 3 straight seasons, and a reputation as one of the most feared edge defenders in the NFL. That's not just a name, that's a tone setter. Imagine that energy in a Cowboys uniform. Pair Crosby's motor with this offense's rhythm, and suddenly Dallas doesn't just look like a playoff team, they look like a team built for January football. But of course, that's the dream scenario. The more realistic path might be targeting a player like Logan Wilson from Cincinnati, a reliable, high IQ linebacker who thrives in coverage and brings leadership to the middle of the defense. Wilson doesn't make highlight reels, but he wins on every down. He's the kind of piece that turns good defenses into great ones. Combine that with the return of DeMarvion Overshown and Siobhan Revel from injury, and suddenly you've got internal reinforcements on top of external firepower. Dallas doesn't need a rebuild. They need refinement, a nudge, one spark. That's all it takes. Here's what stands out most. For the first time in months, the Cowboys look united. You can see it in the way the offensive line celebrated each score, in how the defensive backs rallied after every stop, and in how Schottenheimer's sideline felt alive. There's something different about this energy. This doesn't feel like a team searching for itself. It feels like a team rediscovering what makes it dangerous. The locker room isn't hanging its head over that tie or those early losses. It's focusing on what's in front of them. Denver, then a bye, then a run of statement games against Philly, Kansas City, and Detroit. Those are the tests that define who you are in December. And let's not forget, Dak Prescott is quietly putting together one of the best stretches of his career. Over the last 4 games, he's thrown for over 1,200 yards, 13 touchdowns, and just 1 interception. He's second in completion percentage in the league, second in total passing touchdowns, and he's doing it all while playing behind a rotating offensive line and without Micah Parsons to bail out the defense anymore. That's leadership. That's growth. That's an MVP caliber quarterback leading from the front. Dak's chemistry with CeeDee Lamb is back and electric. Their timing, their spacing, their anticipation, it's poetry in motion. Add George Pickens to that mix, who has been on fire since arriving in Dallas, and this receiving corps suddenly looks elite. You can't double everyone. Defenses are being stretched thinner than ever before. And when that happens, Dak has been surgical, finding Ferguson underneath, feeding Lamb on the slants, and trusting Pickens deep. This isn't the Dak who presses under pressure. This is a composed general who knows exactly where the advantage lies. Now, let's be real. The NFC is stacked. San Francisco, Philadelphia, and Detroit are all dangerous. But what separates the great from the good in this league is adaptability. And Dallas, under Schottenheimer, is showing they can adjust. The defensive shift to more man coverage paid off. The offense's increased tempo has thrown defenses off rhythm. And most importantly, they're winning the mental battles, staying aggressive when things get tough, not folding under adversity. The beauty of this current Cowboys team is that they have options: draft capital, cap space flexibility, depth at receiver and running back. They're not desperate, they're opportunistic. And when you're opportunistic in late October, you control your destiny. The trade deadline is coming fast, and this might be the first year in a long time that Dallas has both the motivation and the means to make a splash move. Because let's face it, this team is too talented to waste this window. Cowboys Nation, we're closer than people think. Closer to being not just competitive, but dangerous. This isn't about what if, this is about why not. Why not push the chips in while Dak is playing like a top 5 quarterback? Why not fortify the defense when the offense is already championship ready? Why not believe again? Brian Schottenheimer has built a culture that preaches resilience. The players have bought in. The front office is aligned. And for the first time in a long time, the Cowboys look like a team that's finding itself at the perfect time. The rest of the NFL might not be ready for it, but Cowboys Nation is. This isn't false hope. This is the product of work, belief, and adjustment, the kind of formula that's made champions before. So I'll end with this. Dallas is closer than the critics want to admit. One smart trade, one healthy stretch, one playoff push. That's all it takes to turn this story into a redemption arc. Cowboys Nation, do you believe it? Do you think Jerry should pull the trigger on a defensive move to complete this puzzle? Drop your thoughts in the comments, hit that like button if you're feeling the momentum building, and subscribe to Cowboys Nation Report, because we're not just watching a team chasing hope anymore. We're watching a team rediscover its destiny. The stars are lining up, and Dallas is ready to shine again.